when his parents and sister were all killed in a Warsaw hit-and-run auto accident, young Staniak was consumed with rage against the driver. She was the young blonde wife of a Polish Air Force captain, and when she was cleared of criminal negligence, Staniak felt bitterly that justice had not been done. His rage grew into obsession, and eventually he determined to take revenge on young blonde women wherever and whenever he could. In 1964, he wrote an anonymous letter to the Polish publication Przegląd Polityczny. It was written in red ink, in a wavering hand that was to earn him the name of Red Spider. He wrote, "There is no happiness without tears, no life without death. Beware, I am going to make you cry." Working as a translator for the state publishing house, Staniak traveled throughout Poland in the course of his profession. His first victim was a 17-year-old student, Danka Maciejewicz, whom he raped and viciously disemboweled at Olsztyn, some 150 miles north of Warsaw, on July 22, 1964, during the 20th anniversary celebration of Polish liberation from the German occupation. The following day, the state newspaper Kulisy received another anonymous letter, written in a spidery hand with red ink as before, and in a style reminiscent of Jack the Ripper. "See, I picked a juicy flower in Olsztyn, and I shall do it again somewhere else, for there is no holiday without a funeral." Staniak liked to select national holidays for his murders, perhaps because these were days when there were many more young women about, taking to the streets without thought of danger, or perhaps because this was the only time when his professional duties left him free to kill. His second victim was 16-year-old Anyuta Kaliniak, another blonde, who marched proudly at the head of a student parade in Warsaw on January 17, 1965. On the following day, there was another anonymous letter, this time to the police, telling them that they could find her body, garroted with wire and with an iron spike thrust through her genitals, in the basement of a factory close to her home. On All Saints' Day, November 1, 1965, a blonde hotel receptionist, Janka Popielski, fell to Staniak's murdering lust in Poznań, 135 miles west of Warsaw. Janka had gone to the local freight terminal, looking for a free lift to visit her boyfriend in a nearby village. But instead, she encountered the Red Spider. She was suffocated with chloroform, raped, and her body brutally mutilated with a screwdriver before being stuffed into a packing crate. The injuries she sustained were so horrifying that the police suppressed all details. They searched all the trains and buses, leaving Poznań, looking for a man with bloody clothing, but found no suspects and were once again frustrated. The following morning, the local newspaper Kurier Zachodni received another typical letter, with a quotation from a novel by a well-known Polish writer. "Only tears of sorrow can wash out the stain of shame. Only pangs of suffering can blot out the fires of lust." May Day 1966 was marked by the rape and disembowelment of 17-year-old Marysia Galaska, whose mutilated body was dumped in a tool shed behind her home, with her entrails draped across her thighs. On December 24, 1966, the sadistically mutilated body of Janina Kozielska, 17, was found in a train compartment in Krakow. She was the sister of, commentators at the time remarked upon similarities, 14-year-old Aniela, who had been murdered in Warsaw 2 years between Staniak's murders and those of Jack the earlier. This time the brief note, Ripper, the sadistic disemboweling. The clothes from the red spider was found, resemblance of all the victims, and the letters written, pushed through the slot of the in red ink. All these were reminiscent of the unknown mail car who had terrorized Victorian London's East End. Yet, Staniak never suggested, unlike Peter Curtin, see, I have done it again. Pages 34-8, that he had been influenced by the Ripper's history, and his motivation was of another. Investigators discovered that the kind. Further, there was one outstanding difference. Compartment had been reserved by, he was caught, confessed, and was convicted. A man and his wife, and theorized that Janina had arrived as the killer's companion. Major Staniak of the Warsaw Homicide Squad took charge of the Red Spider case. A nationwide search for similar crimes turned up 14 more murders that seemed to fit the Red Spider's modus operandi, although none of them had been followed by the characteristic letters to newspapers. Dating from April 1964, 5 of the murders had occurred around Poznan. There had been 2 at Bydgoszcz, and single killings had taken place in districts such as Białystok, Kielce, Łomża, Lublin, and Radom. Plotting the murders on a map, Staniak noted that most of the crime scenes lay south and west of Warsaw, in towns connected by direct rail lines to Katowice and Krakow. The coincidence of 2 sisters being murdered gave them their first positive clue. Both had posed as artists' models for the Art Lovers Club in Krakow, and an analysis of red ink used by the spider revealed that it was artists' oil paint, thinned with solvent. Every one of the more than 100 members of the club was questioned, and very soon the police picked upon 26-year-old Lucian Staniak, a keen painter. The sadistic killer was apprehended in Lodz on February 1st, 1967, hours after he had murdered student Bożena Raczkiewicz, 18, at the railway station. He had knocked her unconscious with a vodka bottle, and the clinching evidence had left his fingerprint on the glass. In interrogation, he very soon admitted his identity as the Red Spider and claimed that he had committed this last killing because publicity for his recent actions had been lacking. A check on his movements over the previous 2 years fitted closely with the scenes of the succession of unsolved murders. Confessing to 20 murders in all, Staniak was tried for 6 and found guilty. However, he was subsequently judged insane and committed to an asylum in Katowice for life.